Hello, Mark here from Cosmic Audio, and I just wanted to do a really quick video on recording drums. Now recently we did a video shoot in the studio for the BB Blues Band. We had very little time to set up. The band arrived about 9-10 o'clock and the drummer had to be away by 3, so we had a very limited time span and they wanted to get 4 songs done. So it was literally a case of throw some microphones up, get the cameras set up, hit record, get them playing, packed down, gone. A very, very speedy session, which reinforced what I've always thought, which is the 3 main things, the 3 most important things in getting a really good drum sound. Now, important thing number 1, and I think it's the most important thing out of everything else, and that is have a really good drummer. If you're recording a really good drummer, then you're 90% of the way there. They can be using a crappy old kit, you can use rubbish microphones, it doesn't really matter. If you've got a great drummer, you can literally mic the drum kit up with anything and the drummer will make the drum sound good, the microphones will capture that. And obviously if you're doing an album, you want to put a bit more thought into it than that, and you want to try different snares and different tunings and get everything set up to suit the record. But if you're in a rush or if you're just starting out, the most important thing you need to know is that to get a good drum sound, you need, number 1, a good drummer. Number 2, a good drum kit helps and some lovely sounding cymbals. And number 3, the third most important thing, is the room that you record it in. If you've got a really echoey, horrible sounding room, the mics are going to capture that. There's ways around it. You can make sure you use cardioid dynamics, close mic the drums and concentrate on the close mic sound and try not to get so much of the room. But if you've got a horrible sounding room, you're probably going to get a horrible sounding drum recording. So let's have a look at what we did. We had very, very few mics on the kit. We had a mic in the kick drum, which was a AKG D112. Budget classic. We had a microphone on the outside of the kick drum, which is this one. Now this is actually a really cheap MXL microphone, but I'd like a little bit of DIY electronics and stuff like that, so I replaced the grill with a much better quality grill, replaced the capsule with an RK47, which is basically a U47 capsule, and replaced the electronics in the microphone as well for clone U47 electronics. So this is a great sounding mic on anything that produces low end, bass drum, bass amplifiers, male vocals. This is a great sounding mic, and a fraction of the cost of a genuine U47, which could be, you know, £15,000 these days. Does it sound like a U47? Well, all U47s have aged differently and they all sound different now, so yeah, it probably does. I'm going to tell myself that anyway. So that was on the bass drum. For overheads, we used a pair of these. Now these are really cheap condenser microphones from Thomann. They're their own brand, and I think they were £90 for a matched pair, including a case, which is insane. Long live China. And they just sound great. I've used KM84s, all kinds of things over the years, and these sound as good as anything. Often we'll use a large diaphragm condenser as overheads instead of a small diaphragm condenser. Pros and cons for me are the large diaphragm condenser, you tend to get a fuller drum sound, whereas with a small diaphragm condenser you tend to get more detail in the cymbals. Also the pickup pattern on these is a little bit tighter than it is on our large diaphragm mics. They're quite cardioid, and we were recording a band live in the room with no headphones, vocals coming through monitors, so there was quite a bit of spill in the room, and I chose these mainly to pick up detail on the cymbals, but also to cut down on a little bit of spill. So I'm going to play some of the recording in a minute. You'll hear some of the spill come through in the mics. It was at a level that if the guitarist needed to redo a solo, then we could have overdubbed the solo and it would have been fine. But so those for overheads. We used on the snare, becoming a classic these days, the Audix i5. Also use SM57s on snares as well. These tend to be a little bit brighter, need a little bit less processing after the event. Just a great mic for snare, great mic for guitar cabs, great mics to put on a Leslie. I've used them on vocals. They're just a great all-round microphone. Anywhere where you'd use an SM57 or an SM58, you can use one of these and they'll sound great. You can use them on horns, you can just use them on anything. Brilliant microphones. The whole Audix range is really good. Then for toms, normally on toms, if we're doing a proper album recording, I'd use large diaphragm condensers or dynamics, depending on what kind of sound we're after. In this case, because we were videoing the band, we wanted to be as unobtrusive as possible, so I just used these clip-on mics, which again were from a very cheap Chinese-made drum kit. You can clip them on the ring, they get nice and close to the head, and they just sound great for toms. I gated the toms, and they just gave us a nice smacky, punchy, warm, dynamic sound. So those were great. So those are the mics we used on the kit. Let's play a bit of the track, and let's just bring everything up for the moment, just roughly, just so you can hear what's going on. So that's just a very rough balance, and then we'll go through each microphone and just listen to each one in isolation. So that's just a very rough mix of the drums. So the main thing with this recording, as I said earlier, is that you get a good drummer. The drummer was Roger Batting, who's a very well-respected drum teacher from just outside of Cambridge. He's worked on all sorts of things. He's worked with Dave Stewart from the Eurythmics. He's worked on American Idol. He's a well-known drummer, lovely guy, and just brilliant behind a kit. He's got a great drum face, put loads of energy into it, and that's one of the most important things. He really gives a performance, and you want to capture that performance. Doesn't matter what you capture it with or how you capture it, just capture it.